Ladies and gentlemen, from La Casa de los Lobos, the pit, here at the University of New Mexico, let's get ready to rumble!
I thought I'd hit you with the triple hey there. I'm flying solo for the moment, and I'll bring back my panel tonight. Everybody is busy tonight, being that it's a big game and family duty calls. So from everybody here at the Pit Press, appreciate it, and we'll be back tomorrow night with BJ Rains. But I just felt it was rather importante to come with a live show tonight, even more so with what transpired today. So my name's Ryan Tamori. This is a special episode of the Pit Press live tonight. I want to thank all of our sponsors: Hydro Bar, Affordable Solar, Affordable Service, Turquoise Desert Tap Room. Appreciate it for making the show possible. Feel free to join in the conversation on YouTube and Twitter, because UNM and your men's basketball team keeps sole position of first place in the Mountain West Conference with an 82-79, and I don't know any other words but wild game at the pit, in the pit today. Not at the pit, you're always in the pit. And it was a weird game, but I'll introduce somebody who well, he stepped away for a second. So there he is. Somebody who actually played the game from 82 to 83 and 84 to 85 with the UNM men's basketball team. He averaged 12 points and 6 rebounds a game. His name is George Scott. George, how you doing tonight?
I am great. I am fantastic. That was an amazing game today. People will be talking about this game for years to come. If anyone missed this game today, you messed up, because it was a classic pit game.
Don't tell that to Ed Nunez, because he was in Silver City working for Western New Mexico, and I literally just got off the phone with him before we went live here. George, I'm going to start here with just some highlights. Here's the true three to go up. What was it? 80-76, I believe.
Shot clock winding down. Here's Washington for three. Buries it. New Mexico by 4.
And then the very next play, the very next possession for Utah State.
Last chance for Utah State. Allen dumps it off. Ball slide. 3. Hits it. Stopping the clock with 3.6. Dent. Timeout. Richard Pitino still has 2 times.
Utah State didn't have any timeouts in the final minutes of that game. I don't know where to start in this 82-79 win. The Lobos were down 8. I got to give a shout out to former manager too that I know for the men's basketball team, Kevin McCurdy, who sits right in front of press row.
I know Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin's the man. I'm glad you know Kevin,
Yep.
George.
Yep.
He turned around and looked at me and said they shoot threes well, which we knew. And sure enough, they scored like 10 points or 9 points in Utah State in the matter of, I don't know, 30, 40 seconds. There's officiating. X was going nuts after the game. I don't know where to start, but because you played the game, I'm just going to get your initial thoughts. George, what was your thoughts on the game?
Initial thoughts. Just a huge win. Utah State came out very focused. Fauslif, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but he came out on a tear. I think he scored their first, 6 or 7 points. And then the Allen kid off the bench ripped off the next 6 or 7 points by himself. But you can tell that they were really motivated after we beat them by 19 at their place. And right away I thought, these guys are serious. We're in trouble today. There's not going to be another 19-point blowout today. That was my initial thought.
No, I felt the same way. I felt like they came to play. I think Utah State is and I always make the joke on this show that I'm not the basketball player, which I'm not. Obviously, George, you played at a higher level. Rick played, Nick played, Ed played. Eric is our resident state champion. But I don't know. I think they're a fun team to watch. I like Ian Martinez. We had the pleasure of talking to them at Mountain West Conference Media Days. Drake Allen and Ian Martinez, and they blew us away. I don't know. I think he's a phenomenal point guard.
Yes.
I don't think, and I turned to Nick Nunez, and then I was sitting next to JJ Buck from 610. I don't think I had ever seen a game where a team was up X amount of points and really hadn't had a foul called on the opposition. And at one point had only, I don't think had taken a free throw, but there were 32 free throws in the first half. Much better performance tonight. 16 of 21 for UNM at the line just in the first half alone, and then Utah State 11 of 11. But the personal fouls, 16-7 called on Utah State. I don't know the game of basketball enough, and I had seen, not that I should use my sources as on Twitter, but that the style that Utah State plays, hence they were getting a lot of foul calls. I don't like to make, and George, the floor is yours after this. I don't like to make the game about the ref show. The officiating was horrid the other night. UNM did enough to do it. Utah State is crying tonight. And for those that listen to the show, again, I'm pretty biased towards UNM. I thought that they did enough to win the game, and Utah State did enough to lose the game. But I wanted your thoughts on the officiating in the first half.
Well, like I mentioned the other night, I thought it was consistently bad for both teams. I really don't think any team got an advantage because it was bad all the way around. I haven't seen a stat sheet, so how many total fouls did we have versus the amount they had?
For the entire game or for the first half?
Or whatever, first half, second half, whatever. I haven't seen a stat sheet at all.
Well, the first half, Utah State was called for 16. UNM had 7. For the game, Utah State had 29. UNM had 15.
Okay. Well, Utah State is a outside-in team, meaning they score most of their points from the outside, shooting three-pointers. Teams don't generally get a lot of fouls when they shoot three-pointers. But UNM with Donnie and True and CJ driving to the basket, they would typically generate a lot of fouls on the other team. So I think that would explain that, because Utah State, my goodness, they were on fire. I was texting Hunter Green and Mike Winters after the game, telling those guys that watching Utah State today reminded me of our games against BYU back in the 80s, because that's exactly how BYU used to play. Now this is back before the three-point line, but they would pass the ball around until someone for BYU got an open 25-footer, and they would generally drain it. And they had their big guys, Greg Kite, Steve Trumbull, 6'11" monsters to rebound the ball for them. But yeah, it reminded me of those old BYU teams. They preferred those long 20, 25 footers than going to the basket, and thus they didn't get a lot of fouls either. That's what happens when you out there fly fishing, so to speak, casting your line from 25 feet away. Those don't generate fouls versus you going to the basket and initiating contact.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense to me, and I had kind of thought that. Yeah, I thought that the game was also pretty physical, and they let them play, which I thought for a matchup, at least in the first half, and you can tell me I'm wrong, at least in the first half, they let them play, despite what you see on Twitter. That's just my observation. But I don't know. I think that that Utah State came out with a plan. I mean, I always mention on the show the Mike Tyson quote, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth or the face.
Right.
And I thought that UNM had a plan, and then Utah State came out. I mean, I'll give my thoughts on True Washington. He's known as a defensive player. You have CJ Nolan, by the way. Richard Pitino said post game that it was a concussion or concussion-like symptoms. Those are the direct quote. You can go over to YouTube and check that out on the Go Lobos or New Mexico Lobos page for the post-game press conference. He got hit. I thought he had looked like, I didn't want to say he looked like he flopped. I'm not saying that. It just didn't look as bad when Nick and I were watching the replay, because I had my laptop there today.
I agree.
Yeah. But what I think, George, what I wanted to ask you is, True is, by the way, I know I'm all over the place, just because I felt like this game was, Donovan Dent played every second of this game.
Did he really?
Yeah, he played all 40 minutes. So I'm sure he was gassed. I didn't think he jawed. I love the kid. I didn't think he jawed as much with the officials today. Of course, I could be wrong. But True's line, he played 35 minutes, 8 of 15 from the field. He was 50% from three, missed 2 free throws. It was 25 points. And he had 5 rebounds and 4 assists. He's a kid. He's a kid who's known for his defense, and I thought he brought it. And when he was shooting the 3 early, I thought that he was feeling it. So, George, your thoughts on True's performance today?
I thought True was the reason that we won the game. Donnie's going to be Donnie. Donnie does what Donnie does. He's going to get us 20, 25 points, 6, 7, 8 assists a night. But for True to step up and deliver 25 points was huge. That 25 points was the 25 that JT Toppin would have scored last year. He's obviously gone now, so there's a void that True stepped up and then delivered. So I thought he was the star of the game.
I was pretty impressed with him. Here he is post-game. And then I got to give a shout-out to Daily Lobo reporter Rodney Pertney. I hope I have your last name right, man. This is True Washington. Rodney asked a question from, as I am a Daily Lobo alma mater, so stay away from those Daily Lobo guys. Here's True on the game. Oh, and it's not playing, so I apologize. I think I already played Patino. No, I didn't play Patino. Here's Patino.
Well, amazing job of just finding a way. Utah State's a terrific team. True Washington stepped up in such a huge way. I know stat sheet says 25. I think he had 28. Made some huge plays, made that big three at the end. We thought they'd be physical. We thought that we'd get to the free throw line a lot. Obviously, making 27 was great. Rebounded the ball very, very well and turned them over. So huge win. Very grateful for the fans. It's an amazing, amazing environment. I do not take it for granted. So thank you. Great win. We'll enjoy tonight. We'll move on tomorrow.
My clip of True Washington froze, so I apologize. So I thought I'd give you a patino there. I guess another thing, and I'm glad, I can honestly say that I'm glad I'm hosting this show tonight as opposed to writing a game recap for a newspaper outlet or an online outlet, because I wouldn't know where the hell to start at all. I would have no idea. Right. I think that the crowd was pretty phenomenal. And I think they played a part, and some of us media guys in the post game were talking about it. But George, again, you've been to a lot of games at the Pit. I have too. I've never played on the court. But I thought they sold out tonight, and I thought the atmosphere earlier today was awesome.
It was truly awesome. It was electric in there. When you walked in the building, you could feel the electricity. You can feel the energy. People were ready. I got to the Pit at about 1:00, an hour before tip-off, thinking I would beat traffic and get situated. Do you know that Pit was practically full 1 hour before the game? It was an early arriving crowd. People were fired up and just chomping at the bit, ready to go. Crowd was ready. Our team got off to a little bit of a slow start. I think we needed to match Utah State's energy, but the crowd definitely helped us win this game today. If this game was played anywhere else but Albuquerque, New Mexico, we lose this game, no doubt about it.
I think that's a valid point. I agree with you there. Just some stats to throw around. I got there at about 1:35. I had lunch with some buddies, and of course the traffic. I'm going to be that guy now. I saw somebody, and Fernando Lobo, I know you're not listening.
He might be.
I don't know. He might be. I saw somebody tweet at him about the traffic situation. And I'm just going to say this. If you're complaining about the traffic with 15,000 people in and out of a small area like that, you should go see the Jets or Giants play in Meadowlands and have a good time trying to get out of there. That's all I'm going to say to that.
Exactly. And also stop leaving home at 1:30 thinking you're going to get there by 2 or whatever. Get there an hour ahead of time. My goodness, people bring this stuff on themselves.
I agree with you there again. Mainly because of a conference known as the SEC, where things are religion down there. And, I'm going to be quite honest. I don't think it's Fernando Lobo's issue with the traffic. Now, obviously he can dictate in and out. There's a reason why they probably do what they do, but I just saw that on Twitter and I was laughing. So, the last athletic director, well, I like Ed Nunez, but the last one I covered was Paul Krebs, and we won't go there. I don't think I ever really defended him, but Fern, and we're the same age, so Fern, I've got your back. Shout out to Steve Kirkland, who always sends some post-game notes. I didn't realize this, probably because I'm an idiot. The Lobos, this is an 8-game winning streak. It's their second longest winning streak, and tied for the fourth longest conference win streak in program history. I think that goes back to 2009 and 2010, where they started conference play right at the end of 2009, and then the new year hit, and I went for Christmas break to see family in New Jersey, New York, and went and got drunk up in Boston and flew back to see another cousin, and they had lost 2 games on the road. And when I got back, they strung together 14 straight wins that didn't lose until San Diego State in the second round of the conference tournament in 2010. That's your road team. That's your Darrington Hobson team. DeReese, my main man, AJ Hardiman. Shout out to Bud Ice. The Lobos swept the Aggies. That's the first time since 2013, 2014. And then they rallied down double digits in the second half for a second straight game. They did that against Wyoming. And then this might be news to your ears and travel plans, Lobo fan. UNM becomes the first team to clinch a first-round bye at the Mountain West tournament, so there will not be a need to win 4 games in 4 days this year. It will be 3 in 3 days. And if you saw the matchup earlier, it might be San Jose State and Wyoming, the lone team to only beat UNM and San Jose State, and then obviously Wyoming, who gave them a hard time. By the way, I'm trying to figure out what happened with Wyoming because Colorado State blew them out.
Yes,
I've done enough talking, George. I'll get your thoughts here in a second. On this topic, when you've been down double digits and then you play in an arena like the Pit, how much does it help you?
It's great when you're in the Pit because you've got 14, 15,000 of your best friends. Back when I played, it was 18,000 of your best friends. So that is an amazing advantage. It's a huge incentive. Conversely, when you're on the road and you're down 10 points, it's hard. You are swimming upstream and you get people booing you, calling you names. It is very, very difficult on the road, but when you're at home, it's really not that bad. It's kind of a nice deal. So that's why it's such an advantage when our team is playing in Albuquerque because, as everyone knows, the fans are practically right on top of the court. And as a player, in fact, someone asked me this tonight or today, if on the court, if we could hear fans yelling things and saying things. And I told him, I said, yes, we can hear things people say the first 2 or 3 rows, just depending on how close you are to the court. But generally the first 2 or 3 rows, especially doing like a free throw or a dead ball or a timeout, if someone says something, we can hear it as clear as day. So that is just a huge, huge advantage playing in that building with the fans right on top of the court, right on top of the players.
I was reading some of the comments and I'll get those at the end of the show. I forgot what I was going to ask next because I was reading the comments when you were talking about. Oh, I know what I was going to say because you were talking about the crowd noise. That is the first time. And again, I left Albuquerque. I was gone for 2-3 basketball seasons. I lived in that arena 2009, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011 in college at the Paper. And I've seen a lot of games since. And then since we started this company 2 years ago, been fully back in that arena at almost every game for the last 2 basketball seasons. But I can say for all the games that I've covered there, this was the first time that I didn't hear an official whistle and we saw the players stop. So the whistle was blown. I never in my life in that arena had not heard the like a whistle blown. Usually you can hear it even with as loud as it is in there. Yeah, and I looked at JJ or Nick and I was like, I didn't know that they blew the whistle because the players like Donnie threw the ball down. There's a couple other, I think, key talking points. I think Jovan Milicevic has been a tremendous off the bench. He was 2 of 8, didn't make a 3 today. He made his 1 free throw. He had 5 total points, but he had 7 rebounds. So he came up with some key rebounds. And then the other Serbian duo, Filip Borovičanin, he had 11 points. He had those, I think, 3. He ended up on the stat sheet. He knocked down 6 of 8, but he had a stretch where he missed 3. He missed those 3 straight free throws, and then they got a lane violation. Right. But I thought, I don't know, those 2 guys to get out and get a true freshman and a transfer from somebody at the school like U of A. And maybe I can ask you this, George. I feel like Borovičanin does so many little things that don't end up on the stat sheet. I don't know if you would agree or disagree with me on that.
I completely agree. I think what they mainly bring to the table, and I touched on this the other night, is their length and their size. again, as I said the other night, also after that Clemson flameout in the first round of the NCAA tournament last year, Coach Pitino was very clear that he wanted to get bigger. He wanted more size on the wings. And right out of Central Casting, we get Jovan and Philippe, and those guys are, I think, 6'7" for Philippe, and Jovan is 6'10", I believe. I was in practice yesterday, and Jovan is huge. I'm 6'6". Jovan towers over me. Philippe is about my height. He's probably 6'6", 6'7", and what they bring to the table is great length, size, and I was telling Hunter this last week, the fact that they're so big, they're helping us rebound defensively. Last year, Jalen and Jamal sometimes had trouble defensively and getting rebounds because they were small guys, but Philippe and Jovan, they're big guys. So when they crash the board, more often than not, they're going to get that defensive rebound, kick it over to Donnie. He's going to start the fast break. A lot of times last year, we couldn't get the break started because we were such a small team. So I love the fact that, again, they've got great size and they're playing with a lot of confidence, this tremendous confidence. And confidence is everything in sports.
I think when you just said confidence, I think about Mike Vanderjagt missing that field goal, and he had to go in the playoffs, and he had to go see a sports psychologist or get in the case of the yips. I'm trying to think of somebody who got the case of the yips. I think Tiger may have had him a little bit earlier last year. Pitchers can get yips. I think somebody had mentioned to Pitino post game that Dent was like triple teamed. I forgot who was saying it. That they played him defensively. They played him really tough. He still went 8 of 12. He had 2 big threes.
Yes.
And he had 23 points. I don't, George, I think it's kind of funny because when we do this show, we talk about him, but I think we're just so used to him doing what he does because he's a phenomenal player.
Yes.
I'll just ask you straight up, what did you think of his performance today? Because I thought he was the floor general again.
I thought Donnie was Donnie. Donnie does what Donnie does. It was just another day in the park for him, nothing out of the ordinary. He had a few turnovers, which kind of concerned me. There are a few times where he would drive in the lane and he'd lose the ball and fall down. Utah State would start the fast break the other way, but generally, Donnie played great. He hit that huge 3 at the end, and the pit erupted. I thought the roof was going to cave in. That was a huge, huge shot. Again, he's an amazing ball player. I just really, really enjoy watching him. I enjoy watching him dribble the ball. He's got that ball. It looks like he's got that ball on a string, He's putting it behind his back, between his legs, and he's looking at his opponent in the eye. He's not looking at the ball. He's looking at the guy in the eye, waiting for him to blink. And if the guy blinks at the wrong second, Donnie is gone.
He did have 5 turnovers, which after the UCLA game, he said he had a lot of turnovers in Vegas and Henderson, and that he said his family was going to be after him. He had 5 today. And I think he had 2 on back-to-back possessions there late in the second half.
Yeah. I really think that sometimes he tries to do too much, and he does what I call going down into the deep water instead of staying in the shallow end. He goes in the deep water. The defense collapses on him. He falls down. The ball rolls wherever, and the other team has got a 3-on-2 fast break the other way, while Donnie's laying on the court looking at the referees with his hands up, Do
you think if there's going to be a negative, do you think he talks to the refs too much? Have you noticed that?
I do. In fact, he's gotten a few technical fouls, as I recall, but I just think that he's a competitor, and, competitors want every call, but I just really think he could tone that down, let his play do the talking, because the referee's not going to change his call. He's not going to say, Donnie, you know what? You're right. I'm going to change the call. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. That's not going to happen. All you're going to do is antagonize, alienate the referee. Whereas in a few minutes, if there's a 50-50 call, you might not get that call because you done pissed off the referee, you know?
No, I agree with that. I wanted to go to the comments at the end, but this one cracked me up. Eric Markham. Personally, I didn't mind the turnover he had when he hit the blonde guy in the back of the head. Yeah, that was. I mean, I guess if you're going to turn over the ball, do it kind of with style.
Right.
Nelly had 3 fouls. My intention on this show is to never bash. I'm pushing 40. Is to never bash somebody who's 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Not that I was doing with what these guys are doing on the court. I haven't been impressed with Atiki Aliatiki. And it felt kind of like they might have been suspect on defense. And then when he did have the alley-oop and he missed the dunk and they called goal, offensive
goaltending or whatever.
Yeah. But then Nelly came back in and he was kind of eating their lunch. I took a picture of this stat too. Because this was from the Ag Ship, and a shout out to you guys. I love, how much you're tweeting and how you follow, or what I don't know anybody from that site. We've had Sean Harrison and Jason Turner on from the Logan Herald Journal. I appreciate those guys. And I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. I'm going to butcher it. Forgive me. Abun Gadaresti, I think is how you do it. He fouled out in 7 minutes. So kudos to him. He played 7 minutes and had 5 fouls. I don't know how bad that was, but again, I think Nelly, you can talk all you want about Dent. I don't know if this team would be, I feel like it's a true team play, but this is Nelly's stat line. Played 31 minutes when he was in foul trouble there. 4-10, the biggest thing, and I wore my hat today. Make your free throws, my Barstool Sports hat. And then he only had 5 rebounds.
Is that all? Really?
That's all. But I mean, the biggest thing was 7 of 8 from the free throw line.
Yeah.
I thought when he came in late there in the second half, when they needed him, he came in and was the rallying point. George, I wanted your thoughts on that.
I agree. He is such a presence. Again, I was at practice yesterday, and I was talking to him a little bit, and my God, he is a huge man, kid, whatever you want to call him. He's every bit of 6'10". He's probably got a, 32-inch waist, maybe a 34-inch waist. He's got these broad shoulders. I mean, he is a physical specimen. So I just think when he's in there that he is a rim protector. He discourages the other team from even thinking about going there sometimes. And if they do, he is light on his feet. As I said the other night, he's got quick feet and soft hands, and that's what you want in a center. And it's been fun to watch him progressively get better because when he first came here, we were all kind of questioning, was he a good player or not? And why would Daddy Patino send Junior Patino, this 6'10" guy? But a year later, thank goodness he did that, because you're right. Donnie is the engine that makes us go, but Nelly is right behind him. He is a great ball player. He's unselfish. He sets picks. He plays defense. He does the dirty work that a lot of guys don't want to do. Donnie gets the headlines and all the accolades, but Nelly is more of a quiet, behind-the-scenes kind of a leader on this team, and we would not be where we are without Nelly. No doubt about it.
And I think this is one you're going to correct me on if I'm wrong. I've heard depth on this team, and it seems like there's 6 or 7 guys now. They were obviously without Amzil, who I think defensively and his length really helps them. I think sometimes he's a liability offensively. I do like the kid. And then CJ Nolan, who I wish my buddy Jacob Neff was on, because when he saw that he transferred from North Texas, he thought this is such a good gift for UNM, because not only is he a good he's a good long range shooter, he plays defense. Obviously CJ got in for 6 minutes, and again, Patino said after the game that it was a concussion or concussion-like symptoms.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll be back Wednesday night. How do you think, this team today with really 6 or 7 guys was able to step in for missing CJ and Amzo?
Honestly, it doesn't matter because we got the W. We won. That's all that matters. Yeah, it definitely hurt missing CJ. I really, really like him. I said the other night, he's a former football player, and I like his toughness. He reminds me of Darius Gary. You don't push around former football players. Those guys are tough. So that's what he brings to this year's team. But, yeah, we definitely missed him. And Amzo, he was in practice yesterday. He started off in a walking boot. Then he took off his walking boot, and he was just walking around in his socks. So I don't know if wearing sneakers were hurting his feet, but at the end of practice, he was in his socks walking around. So he must be in some really bad shape. So that's kind of concerning, because we're going to need him as the season winds down and as we approach the Mountain West tournaments in Vegas. But yeah, he went from walking boot to just socks. He didn't even have sneakers on yesterday. So I'm thinking that is not good. That doesn't bode well for us, because we're going to need his 6'9" length. And I know there's a lot of people down on him. They think he's streaky or whatever, but I like him. I really, really like him. I just like the fact that, again, he gives us a bigger body on the wings. And as I mentioned earlier, it's great that at his size, he is a huge asset on the defensive backboard, which Jalen and Jamal were not a year ago.
He is somebody that, hit a big shot in Florida against Kansas the year in 2012, the year 2021, right after the pandemic, when KU won the title in 2022. He hit a shot with Dayton at the buzzer, I think in overtime, to beat them. And I think yeah, George, I'll send it to you. But when you say all the accolades of size and what he can do, and maybe the garbage, BS, the guy's been around. He's played in the A-10. He's been in this league a year. He's a veteran. I think they could use him.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure he's an asset on the bench, but I'm sure he's, he's much happier. He's much more helpful, cliche, helpful to them on the court. I know we talked about it the other night, but man, I had the pleasure of covering Darius, meeting Darius. Darius has come on the show. I love the guy, and he was an all-state running back in Indiana. So when he drove the lane, it was like watching a running back, breaking out and getting through the hole, hitting the A gap. Lastly, for you, George, and then I'll get kind of a little preview. I don't want to do the whole thing because we'll be doing that tomorrow night. The alumni weekend, it was very cool. I don't know if you do that every year. Like I said, I got one of my really, really good friends that I've known now going on 25 years. My buddy Mike Matas, and then I got to meet a couple other managers, and I got to give a shout out to Nate Strong. Mike was a manager for Alfred, so I had a pleasure of being at the paper, the Daily Lobo, being able to, and I always talk about it on the show, meeting. And I had a class with Roman Martinez. Ro is the man. Daniel Ferris. And George, now I obviously love you for joining us and kind of being our analyst on this. My 1A and 1B is Daniel Ferris and Dontrell Moore to interview, because Ferris is the man. But there were a lot of players, through the, you played almost 40 years ago. But is it cool to see all those generations of Lobos, to be a part of that, be invited back? I know you guys got to go to practice yesterday. Can you just fill our listeners in what that was like?
It was great. We've been doing the alumni weekend, I think maybe 5-6 years now, possibly 7. And it's like old home week. The guys that are here, show up generally. We had some guys flying today, Ricky Williams and Mike Patterson, who I'd never met before. I'd heard their names, but they played back in the 70s. But it is great because it's good to see all the fellas under one roof at the same time. And I'm a big Lobo fan. I went from a player to being a fan now. And it's great for me to see, and I'll just name off some guys who I saw this weekend off the top of my head. Petey Gibson, legend. Marvin Johnson, he was telling me about the night he scored 50 points against Colorado State. He told me tonight that obviously that was before the three-point line. He goes, George, if there was a three-point line back then, that I would have had 63 or 65 points, So seeing guys like Petey, Marvin, you mentioned Rowe, Daniel, who else? Bob Toppert, Pat King, Rich Pekorski, Kenny Thomas. I can just go on and on and on. I run a former Lobo basketball players Facebook page. So I was taking pictures like a fan, right? And I'm going to upload all the pictures of all those guys who I came in contact with the past 24 hours and, just to kind of document everything that happened because, again, we went to practice yesterday. Then we had a social down at the Rio Grande Brewery. So we're sitting around having some beers, eating some wings, lying about how good we were, So it was a lot of fun. And it's always good just to see everybody, catch up on everybody's life, how are the kids, how's your wife, how's your job going, blah, blah, blah. It's just, again, it's like old home week. And I look forward to it every year.
No, that's awesome to hear. I walked. Unfortunately, my bladder is terrible, so I got stuck in the concourse and then moseyed on over to where I could use a bathroom. And I walked down to the floor and said, "What's up?" to my buddy Mike and Nate, and saw somebody else. But that was George. I really appreciate you sharing that. I really, really do. Any final thoughts else on today? And then obviously, tomorrow night. I think with the way the success, this is a 22-4 team that's 14-1 in conference and 2 games ahead in the lead in the conference, and you're probably looking at an outright title, especially with 2 wins over the second place team, which I think is impressive.
Yeah.
But this week, the last 2 years, I haven't said it this. I haven't said it this year where I called the Mountain West the gauntlet of death. I don't really feel like it is that way this year. I know it's hard to go on the road and win,
Right.
but they have 2 games on the road this year, and you can be Lobo conspiracy theorist and maybe think they did this on purpose. Wednesday night, they're at Boise State and the artist formerly known as Taco Bell Arena, Extra Mile Arena. And then the following Tuesday, February 25th, against San Diego State in Viejas.
Yeah.
San Diego State beat Boise State last night in San Diego.
I watched the game.
What were your thoughts of it?
San Diego State is tough. They've gotten better since we played them. And I know they're going to be waiting for us, chomping at the bit. So, yeah, and I'm sure San Diego State watched our game today against Utah State. So I'm sure that they're going to be just like, yeah, come to Papa. Come on, come to Papa. So
not to mention that they go to Boise, then there. I mean, obviously, I know they'll come back to Albuquerque, but that's got to be
right.
As far as traveling goes, I guess you kind of get it one fell swoop.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts? And I have to thank you, and I'm going to read some comments, but I can't thank you enough for joining me on such short notice today.
No problem, Ryan. Again, if I'm available, I'm your guy. Just give me a little notice, and I am your guy. Final thoughts. I am just shocked. I am floored that we are doing as well as we are, considering we lost Jalen, Jamal, and JT Toppin. If you would have told me a year ago that we would lose those 3 guys and be in first place in the conference, with a practical lock to the regular season title, I would have told you were crazy. So this has been just truly an amazing, magical season. I think we're going to make a run in Vegas, and after Vegas, I think we're going to make a run in March Madness, and I cannot wait to see how this thing plays out. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I appreciate that, George. Before I let you go a minute, because I know there's some comments directed at you that are in the positive light, unlike most of the comments that are directed towards me. Greg Lujan, what a game. GDT, what an amazing game. The fans were so loud. Go Lobos. I'm still hyped up. John Romero, can't wait to hear what Pitt Press has to say about the latest game. Thank you, gentlemen. That true Washington shot at the end was money at the most critical juncture. Yes, it was. The Dent block. I didn't even ask you about the Dent block. I know Patino had mentioned at the end of the game, Jeff Grammer of the Journal asked him, is that something you want Dent to do? And Patino kind of laughed. By the way, I love Richard Patino. I think he's got a good sense of humor.
He does. He's a very funny guy. A lot of people don't know that, and I'm around him a little bit. I'll go to practice every now and then, but he's got this dry, sarcastic sense of humor. He'll say something with a totally straight face, and it's hysterical. He's good about saying something funny and keeping a straight face. He's funny as hell. A lot of people don't see this side of him, but yeah, great sense of humor.
His sense of humor, and it's dry, and I use this reference a lot, which then I'm putting you on a high standard. And once again, if you've listened to the show, this isn't usually me. He's Bill Murray. He's Peter Venkman from Ghostbusters. It's dry and it's a zinger. Right. And he always gets, at least, when I only deal with him, it's in a press conference, and he's constantly giving Jeff Grammer shit, which is pretty funny. But they see each other all the time during basketball season, so Jeff's just doing his job. Ronnie Chav, is that Lobo Ronnie? Was Coop there? I unfortunately had to watch at Sandia today, but the TV didn't show Coop at all. He wasn't there, was he, George?
He was not there, but Marvin Johnson was there, though, and Petey Gibson was there, and David Gibson, Dave Chiotti. I mean, I could go on and on and on, and it was great. It was really, really great.
Before we ask you to break down games with us this week, you've joined us what Ed and I were deeming our Lobo Legend series. We've had Doris, we've had Rowe, we've had David Chiotti, Clayton Shields, my personal favorite. And again, George, I was born in '87, so it's no knock. Royce Only was one of my favorite players. So if you go to our YouTube channel, you can check that out. Okay. And you are on there as well. So that's muy importante. Greg, it just pisses me off, like where everyone is. Oh, I thought that said George. That's my bad. Lastly, before we get out of here, I got to give it up to my guy. And George, this is an inside joke from The Simpsons, so I'm sorry the other guys know it.
Miguel Sanchez.
Great game. USU's strategy was to push and hack every Dent drive. And then Greg Lujan, what did you think of the game? Ed was in Silver City. I only caught the last 7 minutes, but it was amazing. Ryan, you were awesome and did a really good job. Don't acknowledge the haters; they are fools. Well, I'm the true Lobo hater. George, very quickly. And I want to give our listeners it went a little bit longer, but I knew we were going to be shooting the shit, so it was going to go a little bit longer. Boise State is Wednesday night, and then San Diego State is next Tuesday night. Oh, by the way, and I'm sorry I'm all over the place. You mentioned JT Toppins, sound like Holly Holmes. JT Toppin. Again, Arizona State was it last Wednesday. 41 points and 15 rebounds. Texas Tech went up to Stillwater yesterday and completely belt to ass. And I'm sorry I'm using that again. The New York Giants fan is referencing the Eagles, which I don't know what planet I live on anymore. They beat Oklahoma State in Stillwater, which normally Oklahoma State has good teams. I know it's a down year. They beat Oklahoma State 93-55. He shot 70%, 32 and 12 with 3 blocks.
I know. I saw it on SportsCenter last night, and I was thinking, can you imagine if he was on this team? We would probably be ranked in the top 10. And I mentioned the other night, I'm not a big ranking guy. I kind of prefer to fly below the radar. But if he were still here, oh my goodness, that is scary how good this team would be.
I've had a couple people message me that because of what I did and what I do, and I said, don't make an assumption because you know what that does, makes an ass out of you and I. But the way he's playing, and you weren't on that show, George, when he transferred. This was earlier last year, I think, after the transfer portal, and we knew he was leaving or the last day, and we did a show, and we had some people tell us it was a lateral move. Texas Tech, and again, I'm just giving you facts and my observation. I'm not here to talk expletive. Texas Tech is 20-5, 12th in the country, and they are second in the Big 12 behind Houston. They are top probably 12 seed. They're top 12 team.
Wow.
Once again,
obviously the $1 million that Tech is paying JT was money well spent, huh?
Yes, no, I think it was, and I heard it was a little bit more than that, maybe another $1 million on top of that, which again, I don't have an accurate number. I'm not in Lubbock, but whether it's $1 million or $2 million, I'd have to say it's probably worth 2 games of a combined 73 points. George, before we get out of here, I want to let our listeners know tomorrow night, BJ Rains will be joining us. We'll kind of preview Boise State. That way we can at least, get you a day, 2 days to listen to that fully. I was bugging Phil McDonald too, so maybe he can jump on us with us, George, down the road. Would appreciate that. Any final thoughts very quickly looking ahead to Boise State?
We've got our work cut out for us. Honestly, if we can get a split of Boise State and San Diego State, I'd be happy with that. Obviously I'd prefer to win both games, but if we can get a split at worst, I think that would be a good thing because both of those teams are going to be waiting for us. We've already beat them here, and their arena, I'm sure their arenas are going to be full and their fans are going to be ready. So we're going to be doing the inverse of the pit. We're going to be playing on the road in front of, 12, 13, 15,000 people yelling against us and telling us how horrible we are instead of how much they love us at the pit. So it's going to be a totally different dynamic. So at worst, hopefully we can get a split. Best case scenario, let's grab both of them, but I'd be okay with the split.
Well, George, I hope you enjoyed Alumni Weekend with UNM men's basketball. I'm sure you enjoyed the game today. It was up there. I thought it was one of the better atmospheres. I wasn't at the Nevada game this year. I chose not to go. I was tired. But I thought that game today, it definitely felt like it was February 16th. And March, is another 2 weeks away. So it definitely had that writing on the wall. And I would say these are probably the two. San Diego State might peek its head up. I think these are the two best teams in the conference. George, I can't thank you enough for joining us again. I really, really, really appreciate it. You don't know how much I mean that. And I'm glad I've been connected through you with Ed Nunez.
No problem. My pleasure. Thank you for having me. And again, if I'm available, I'm your guy. So shout out to you and Ed and all you guys, and keep doing what you guys do. You guys got a good thing going.
I appreciate that. I really do. And then very quickly, tomorrow night, BJ Rains will be joining us to talk about Boise State. I know I already mentioned that. And then Tuesday night, I am hoping to talk some football because we weren't able to do that with the roster the transfers being announced. So efforting a player, maybe Coach Eck. We've talked to Coach Eck already, but I thought a player would be awesome. So doing that Tuesday night. So just a heads up for this week. I think again, with the team being 14-1 and 22-4, I think down this final stretch, I'm sure this community couldn't talk Lobo basketball enough. I had football on the mind. I know you're a season ticket holder to football too, right, George?
I sure do. I sit up in the press box, and I am so looking forward to football. I've had a chance to meet our football coach, Jason Eck. And by the way, I'm a huge football fan. FYI, I might be a bigger football fan than I am a basketball fan, believe it or not. But I've had a chance to meet and visit with Coach Jack, and he and I have kind of connected, so I am really, really looking forward to football. He signed, I think, 51 players or something I read in the paper.
Yep.
He's saying all the right things. He appears to be doing all the right things, and spring ball cannot get here fast enough for me.
1A and 1B for me is baseball and college football, which, George, I don't know if I've ever told you this. I get the love of college football, not from my dad, but it's from my mama. I get it from my mom.
Really?
My parents grew, and everybody's heard this story on this show, and I've repeated myself. My parents are both from outside Piscataway, New Brunswick, New Jersey, the birthplace of college football.
Okay.
And my mom, every Saturday morning, it's like going to church in the fall. She has to watch College Game Day.
Really?
And she will record it. She will rewind it. She will have a game on in the background.
Are you serious?
I am dead serious. And she refers she refers to Kirk Herbstreit as her firstborn son, not me. And I'm an only child.
Oh my goodness, dude. I've had so many fights with women I've dated over the years about me watching too much football and going to too many football games and watching too much NFL countdown. That's caused problems in my personal life. So that's very encouraging to hear your mom likes football, because I'm looking for a woman like that who likes football.
Well, I will say this. I don't know. Maybe I'll set you guys up. Thank God she's got a sense of humor, and so do I. What's funny is, and I've never told, my dad passed away in 2004, and my dad was working on his PhD and in electrical engineering. I don't know where the hell that gene went, but it skipped a generation. You should meet my son. He's like Rain Man. He's turning 8, and it's almost my dad reincarnated. I love baseball because of my dad. My dad was a Yankee fan, but when he moved out here in the 80s, he got WGN and the Chicago Cubs. So he's buried in a Chicago Cubs tie. But the fact that you mentioned that, 2 things here, now that we're getting personal on a live show, I don't know. My mom's friend, Pat, who I call my aunt, even though she's not blood, she treats me like an aunt. She straight up told my mom, I think like years after they had been married, or when she met my dad or they got engaged back in the 70s, that she saved my dad from nerddom. And my last relationship with a member of the opposite sex basically ended because I did this, and she did not understand at all why. She didn't understand the appeal, and it was very funny. She was abroad over the right before Thanksgiving, and I was in New Jersey, New York. Now I got my roots there, so I stayed with my aunt that I was just mentioning. I got my buddy Isaac that I wrote with at the paper, lives in Philly. He works in Philly, and I have family and friends in New Jersey. And I kept telling her, I said, "Hey, I'm going to go see UNM play at Madison Square Garden. They've got this big basketball game." I don't know how many times I told her that, and I sent her a picture when she was out of the country, and I was sitting at press row in the Garden, and I had sent her the picture before the game, and then she messaged me like halfway through the game, and she goes, "You didn't tell me you were at Madison Square Garden." And I said, "Are you an expletive man? I've told you, I told you a zillion times I was going to be at Madison Square Garden." So anyway, George, yeah, I'm going to have to bug you more. I really appreciate it. We're pushing an hour here. I'm glad I'm repeating myself. I'm glad you enjoyed the game. I'm glad you enjoyed Alumni Media. Thanks for listening to me run my yap. I can't appreciate you enough, though.
No problem. Thank you for having me, and have a great evening.
You too. Everybody have a good evening. I'll talk to you tomorrow night. We will talk to you tomorrow night. And then again, Tuesday, hopefully it'll be a football show. Much thanks to George Scott. I really can't thank him enough. It was awesome. I think he brings a lot of good insight, and he mentioned that he was opinionated, and I think I love him. I think he's been a little bit restrained. I'd love to get full opinion of George Scott. But I'm happy to have him. We're hoping to have, like I said, Phil join us more often. Phil McDonald. He has had, he'll probably tell you about it when he comes on the show. But he's more than happy. So we're happy to have 2 former basketball players join us, especially down the stretch here. We will talk to you tomorrow night. Hopefully Ed will be back with us. See who else we can get on. Tomorrow night, though, expect BJ Rains from Bronco Nation News. We'll already be previewing the Boise State game. Once again, UNM downs Utah State 82-79 today. And I don't know, a thriller of a basketball game. And I think what college basketball's all about, despite the fact of what you think of the referees, which I don't really have a dog in that fight. When you turn over the ball and you have an errant pass, that's not on the referees, that's on you. And I noticed I didn't say a certain school there. Enjoyed the conversation. I thought we couldn't just not talk about this game today with the implication. Again, UNM moves to 22-4 overall and 14-1 in conference and a 2-game lead over Utah State with San Diego State, Boise State, Air Force, and I believe UNLV. So I think it's 4 to go in the season. And I'm getting tired, so I don't know that off the top of my head. I want to make sure I got that right for my own sanity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I forgot about Nevada on March 4th. They have to go there. I don't know, but the UNM men's basketball team sitting in prime position. My name's Ryan Tamori. On behalf of Rick Thompson, Eric Malton, Ed Nunez, Nick Nunez, and Jacob Neff. Again, this is the Pit Press Live. Don't do anything that I would do on a Sunday night. We appreciate everybody watching and listen. Again, thanks to George Scott. Everybody have a good Monday. Be safe.